So my next project, I'm shooting some brass. I need some brass. We're shooting a video for my buddies, and we're making a table. And so brass, I need toys. So we got a couple little toys we're gonna play with because we need some shells for our next table project. So what better way to do it than do it ourselves? Yeah, I think we got some good one there.
She had to.
You want to shoot this?
Huh?
You want to shoot this?
Yeah, hell yeah I do. Yeah? Man, that laser's sick. Oh man. Yes! I want one.
That's fun.
Man. Yeah, yours is all set up. I need to get mine like that.
And then you'll have to pull that back. There it goes.
Yeah. I like that. And what we're doing right here is we're coating the live edges with epoxy to minimize any type of air bubbles, because we're using clear epoxy for this pour, to reduce any type of air bubbles that may come up within the river. And we will do both sides like so. All right, ready to be my cameraman?
Yeah.
All right. So now that we got a layer of dried epoxy on the slabs, we're gonna put them in the mold. And what I wanna do is I'm gonna do a layer of black epoxy. I want a background for my bullets. So we're gonna do a 1/2 inch layer of black epoxy first, then I'm gonna put in the bullets, then I'm gonna do another pour of clear epoxy on this. And then you're gonna want to clamp your work down. And what you're doing is preventing the slabs from floating when you put in the epoxy. You want to wrap your blocks in Tyvek tape as well so the epoxy doesn't stick to it. You want to make sure you clamp them to a surface. All right, now I got my 3-gallon kit of Chemtech epoxy. We have a part A and a part B. And what I'm gonna do is I wanna pour 3 liters. So I'm gonna measure 3 liters. And first, what I'm gonna do with the part A, we're gonna measure to 2 liters. There we go. right at 2 liters. And we'll pour it in a separate bucket. Like so. Then we'll take the B, which is the resin, and we're going to do 1 liter. Just like so. And then we will again pour that in the bucket. Now when we stir, we're going to use a Black Pearl by Chemtech Pigments. Now you want to stir for 5 minutes, and you want to stir really well all over the sides, and you want to mix it really well for 5 minutes. All right, now there's no real rhyme or reason of how much to do, so what I do is I just pour quite a bit, and I'll stir it to get see what the color looks like. Alright, it's also important to say that once you mix this and you pour it, you have 8 hours to work with, so there's no real need for speed, if you know what I mean. You can take as long as you want. Now what I'm doing here is creating a bottom for the bullets to rest on, and that way when I plane it and surface it, because the bullets is heavier than the epoxy itself, we have a little bit of cushion in there before it hits the blades or the brass. Now what I'll do is I'll let this cure, and then I will put bullet shells, bullet casings, and I'll fill the bullet casings with epoxy first and let those cure before we put them in here, and then I'll do another clear pour of epoxy. And then this was Black Pearl by Chemtech. I like the black on black pigment that's going to be in there, and you can swirl it. And what you'll want to do is wait until it gets a little bit thicker consistency before you make the swirls, because the pigment will fall to the bottom. This will take about 3 days to cure, so you want to look at it after around hour 8 and start making those swirls. It's been 3 days. The epoxy is cured. I can now take the clamps off, and now we need some brass to fill this up. So now I got my brass. I've filled them all up full of epoxy. We use a little syringe deal here, and we fill everything up with epoxy, and we let that cure for about 2 days, right? So now what I got to do is, if you see, there is a little epoxy remnants left over, so I go here to my little spindle sander, and we're just gonna knock that off. Right, and then what I gotta do is, once I clean all this up, I gotta clean all the brass, get all the little residue and everything off there before we place that in the epoxy. Now I will spend a few hours doing all this, and when all this is ready, we will put it in the table and then do our initial pour. Alright, so we got ourselves a tumbler. And what we're doing is we're adding bullets in there, get them all nice and clean. We'll let that run in for a few hours, take a look, see how clean the brass is, and we'll go from there. All right, here's the types of brass we're gonna have in the table. We got a 17 HMR, a 9mm Luger, 38 Special, 357 Mag, 300 Blackout, 223, a 50 Beowulf, 6.5 Creedmoor, 270 Winchester, and a 338 Win Mag. Now that we've tumbled these a lot, they've cleaned them up and there still leaves a little bit of residue on them. So what we're doing is we're taking them to the last little bit. We're gonna put them in these drills right here, taking steel wool and just cleaning them off to make a good finish right there. And then we'll fill all these up. And then we got more in the tumbler. Now be the process for us cleaning all these brass. So now what we're gonna do to create a bond for the next pour of the epoxy, we're gonna scruff it up a little bit. I'm gonna scruff up the epoxy on the side, the edges, and the epoxy river itself. That way, when we make another pour with all the bullets in it, the epoxy, the second pour, will have something to bond to. Yeah, just throw them all in there. Look at it, nice. Trying to get the last. All right, now what we're doing here is we got the resin and the hardener we're mixing through. We're gonna wanna mix for 5 minutes at least. And you wanna make sure that you mix real well, all over the sides and everything. You wanna get that resin really mixed thoroughly well. All right, so now I'm gonna take what we've already stirred and re-pour it in this 4-liter bucket. I'm gonna leave a little bit of room because then bubbles, when I try and release them, will flow over the bucket if I'm not careful enough. So we'll place the epoxy in there. The lid on top, and you can get one of these little vacuum pumps that I think I got this off Amazon. And then I will close the valve, and this will go all the way up to around 25, 28, and we will release the bubbles. And that gauge reaches all the way up to about almost to 30, you'll start seeing the air. Alright, now what we want to do is pour really gently, because we don't want to introduce any more bubbles than we already have taken out. You can tell the clarity in that. We got a little bit of. Let me see that stick. There we go.
It stopped recording.
Okay. Let it go, it's fine.
Okay.
Now that we poured enough epoxy to fill up about 1/8 of an inch from the top, I'd say about 1/16 inch from the top, we're gonna let this sit for about 3 days. And after 3 days, it'll be cured. We're gonna leave the shop on about 65, 68 degrees the whole time. And then we'll surface it on the slab miser and then start the finishing process. All right, now it's time to demold this bad boy right here. So it's been 4 days. Since and it's nice and hard and it's cured. After day 2, I could touch the top of it, but it'd still be rubber if we demolded it. Day 3, it was probably good enough to demold, but I just wanted to wait an extra day. So now it's nice, solid, and hard, and we're gonna. Look at that, it's a translucent too, so you'll be able to see that through. Good deal. Cool. So now we are going to take it on the surfacing machine and get this surfaced up, and then we'll have to start finish sanding. We gotta move that slab. Alright. So now we're gonna surface this bad boy. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna surface the top of this off the slab miser, right? I wanna get as much of this epoxy off as possible. And then we're gonna take it from here and put in the drum sander. This is a dual head drum sander. We'll go through there and then we'll finish the sanding process on the fest tool. Check that out. No air bubbles at all whatsoever. This thing came out great. So now when I when I surface this thing, it's gonna get really cloudy. It's gonna get really foggy from all the planer and sanding blades. So we'll have to sand this all the way up to 3,000 to 5,000 grit is what we're gonna end up doing. Now that we got her all nice and surfaced up, we got all these planer marks that we now have to sand out. It went from clear to real foggy. So what we'll do, normally on like regular pigment, we just sand to 320. But on this, we're gonna sand up to 3,000. And then we'll polish it. So that's the difference between pigment and then clear. There's a lot more processes in that. And so now that this is flat, we're gonna run it in our drum sander, and then we'll finish it off with the Festool. All right, now that we got the planer marks all off and we are gonna start finish sanding, we know now everything's true. We're gonna cut the sides and then we're gonna finish sand. All right, now we got our tracks all lined up. We're gonna square off the edges, make a few passes, and start sanding. All right, now that everything's at 100, truly flat, we're going to do a 1/4 inch round over bit on all sides. Woo. Careful with that. Now what's great about these small tables, they're a lot easier to handle. And you want to go nice and smooth and slow when you go over the epoxy. If you go too fast, it will chip on you. We want to avoid that. Now that we got everything routed and surfaced and ready to go, it's time for the finishing process. And what I'm doing is I'm filling up little holes with this Star Bond epoxy. And it's just a quick set epoxy, and you go through and you fill all these little tiny holes and everything through there. Oops. Tiny holes and everything through there. And then we'll go through and sand it. And it makes everything smooth and neat and nice for good quality purposes right there. So I'll fill in all these holes with that, and then we're going to start the sanding process from 100, 120, 150, 180, 220, 320, and then we'll start wet sanding from there all the way up to 5,000. All right, now that we got the project down to 320, I'm not going to sand any more of the wood. I'm going to get my brand right here. I'm going to put it in the side. I called the customer wants it on the side. I'm going to put it on the side. And then from there, we're going to start sanding just the epoxy to 5,000. And when I get to grit 800, I'm going to start wet sanding. And then we'll wet sand the rest of the way. All right, now my brand is all nice and heated up. I'll make sure. Perfect. So now we got the sanding process down, it's time for the polishing process. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a few different coats. I got the 3M Perfect It 36060. We're going to use this with the wool pad for the first coat. And the second coat, we're going to do the 3M Perfect It 60094, the black cat. We're going to use the black pad for that. And then on the third coat, we're going to use the Wizard Shine Master. We're going to use the blue one for that. So just a little bit goes a long way. There we go, you don't need much. And you want to start out with some slow RPMs. I'm going to put it down. This is the adjustable speed DeWalt polisher. We'll start off with low speed, and I'll go up to 2200. Ooh, look at that. That's the first. Got a nice little sheen to it. The first coat. Oh, yeah, that looks pretty. You can see there's no air bubbles at all whatsoever in that. That's turned out really nice. All right, so now we're gonna do number 2. Okay, same as before. You don't need too much. That might even be a little too much. All right, this is coat number 2. It's starting to look a lot like glass. Now we'll do the last coat, the Wizard Shine Master. So this one, we use the blue pad for and let's do a little on there as well. Woo. Yeah, she's pretty. So now it looks like glass pretty much, and you literally can't see any air bubbles in there. And I like the contrast with the depth in that. I'm very happy with it. So now what we'll do is I'm gonna go back over the wood part of this and clean everything up with the 320 grit, and then we'll start the oiling process on the wood itself. So what I'm doing here is I want a nice even finish when I do my oil, and because I sanded so much up to such a high grit, I'm starting to get really fine passes over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going back with a 320 finish, and I'm gonna try and get as close as to the epoxy as I can without actually messing any of the epoxy up. See, and that's it. It'll be a nice little uniform finish, and then I'll do the same on that side as well. All right. So the first coat, like I said, is gonna be my thin, and it's a water-like substance, if you look in there. And you don't need very much at all. You just need to lay down a few little drops there. And then we will rub it in. To the wood. And when you put a coat of the thin on, you'll wait about 8 hours, and then you'll do another coat of the Polex, and then you'll do another 8 hours, and so on. And then when you have a big table, obviously it takes a little bit longer. But we will be real tedious. And what you want to do is you're going to want to rub this oil in and keep rubbing and keep rubbing and keep rubbing until you don't have any streaks left at all. And then we'll do this through the whole table process. And I'll probably spend a good hour on each coat, just rubbing it in. And that's the more you buff it in, the more of a sheen you'll get. All right, well, there you have it. This is the first coat of our oil that we'll have on here, and then we will wait 8 hours, do a coat of the Polex, and then do a second coat of the Polex 8 hours after that. We'll finish it off with the liquid wax cleaner. But so far, I like the way how it polished out. The epoxy looks like glass, no air bubbles, and the finish is looking really nice. Now, it's time for coat number 2. I did this late last night, so now we're ready for another coat first thing this morning. And it is a Polex. It's a solid. This is more of a solid. This is what will make the top cure into a more of a harder type surface. And just a little bit goes a long way. And this is a 3M pad, just a white pad. So once you buff a coat on there, you take a dry 3 pad and you just go over, and you're wanting to get all the smears out of it. You wanna keep rotating and buff it all in until it basically looks dry already. Just like this. Now it's got a little bit of a darker shade to it. And we'll put on one more coat, and then it will harden. It will harden, and then we'll put on a protectant, and then this thing will be good to go. For coat number 2 of the Polex. This will be a total of coat number 3. One coat of the liquid wax cleaner, and then 2 coats of the Polex. All right, now that I got the second coat of the Polex on here, it is the end of the day for me. So in the morning, I'm gonna wake up, and then I'll put the last coat of liquid wax cleaner on here. But so far, we got a nice, good sheen on the top of this top there, and it's looking really good. Now it's time for coat number 4. And the very last coat is going to be the liquid wax cleaner. And this is a protectant. And what it is, I'm going to shake it really well. It's like a, I don't know if you can see in there, but it's like a white cloudy substance. And you only need, just like everything else, very little bit of it. And like I said, this helps seal the last coat. You only need just a little bit of it. And I always end up pouring too much. Okay, now the finished coat is on, it's dry, we're ready to add it. And what I did was I put threaded inserts on the bottom and I just forgot to film it.
Oh no.
Here, take those off. Thank you. Little. There we go.
Perfect.
Thanks, Jacob.
You're welcome.
So, all right, these threaded inserts right here. What I did, and I forgot to record this, but I put a piece of tape on a drill bit, 3/4 inches down. Actually, it's an inch down. And once I hit the tape, I know when to stop. These threaded inserts are 3/4 inches. Actually, they're 1/2 inches thick, and the bolts we put are 1 inch thick. So that gives it enough room for clearance. Once we drill it, we then put in these Easy Lock threaded inserts. That's what they are. Easy Lock threaded inserts. They look like that. We put them there. So then, take this. We place it on the base like so.
Ooh, that looks pretty.
Very nice. There we go. Set it up in here. And we'll throw these inserts in, and then we will put the base in the house and we'll set it up for pictures, and the customer will come pick it up tomorrow.
That is really cool.
Yeah, I really like how that welder did with that base.
Yeah.
All right, check that out. How cool is that? With a little ball bar base, and we patinaed this, and then once it was patinaed, we did a spray poly on everything, so it's easy to come off. Now let's put it in the house, see what it looks like. All right, there she is, all done. Look at that sheen, completely bubble free. I am absolutely happy with how this table turned out. Well, thank you guys for following along that long video. I appreciate you guys. If you made it this far, congratulations. Please subscribe to my channel. It helps make me more videos and more content for you guys. Again, appreciate it. And until next time, we'll see you guys around.